CETA is the worst example, or a good example of the worst process, whereby we do the exact opposite of what we need to do. We are a planet running out of resources. We are hurting our planet. Nobody's against trade. When Paul Moist is with me on this panel, the very first thing he says is we're not against trade agreements. That's not what we're doing here. But we are against trade agreements that remove democratic local rights for us to make our own decisions about our lives. CETA would lock in, as NAFTA has locked in, only this is the next level down with procurement at other levels. CETA would lock in a process that would just be purely anti-democratic, a huge boon to the corporations of Europe.
What else does Europe want? As Maud said in the excerpt from the video, they are home to some of the world's largest water companies, largest pharmaceutical companies, largest private healthcare companies. They want access to the public sector below that which is controlled by the federal government. Our healthcare system, for example, controlled constitutionally and provided for by provinces. All the services that your municipality provides, including water. They want compensation if they're bypassed. We know when these kind of rights are given to corporations, it puts a chill on any notion of new public programs for which they might feel entitled to a piece of it.
The same nations that we have been dealing with for the last, or since we joined Confederation, the same fishing nations that descended on our fishing grounds many, many years ago are the same nations, to a large degree, certainly includes all of them and maybe a few more added to them, are the same nations that are sitting across the negotiating table from the Canadian negotiators for free trade. And of course, this gives us a great deal of concern, and we should be. The collapse of that fishery was a stunning blow, as everybody knows, to Newfoundland fishing communities and to the economy of Newfoundland. We lost 80,000 people. We lost 80,000 people from those fishing communities. Communities collapsed.
So we in Truro have adopted a sustainable procurement policy that allows the municipality to adjust in either direction 15%, so a total of 30%, negatively or positively. So if 4 bids come in on a widget that the town is procuring, and one of the companies is, say, about 10% higher in their bid, they're not immediately eliminated because they've reported some of the other contributions they can make to the community. So maybe these are job creation opportunities or other social goals of affirmative action, or they've taken a number of environmental measures, and so there's some bonus points allocated to them there. And so these can be weighed in, and then all of a sudden, you weigh in these numbers, and they are now the lowest bidder. This agreement absolutely undermines the ability of local municipal governments to pursue those strategies, those social tools, and those local economic development tools.
Agriculture is another critical issue in these negotiations. While the Conservative government has pledged to protect supply management, the EU is insisting on additional market access that will further erode supply-managed sectors. A good example is the dairy industry. one of the few sectors where a Canadian farmer working hard and efficiently can make a decent living in agriculture today. This exemplary system ensures that farmers get a greater share of the income generated in the farm sector. It makes our rural communities stronger and provides consumers with a secure supply of healthy food at reasonable prices. Unfortunately, the EU wants increased access for its cheese and industrial milk products, which will reduce the market share available to Canadian dairy farmers. Our supply management system is under threat as never before.
On se retrouve avec toutes sortes de
Europeans
services
are targeting the very services we are so proud to call our own. Even Pierre-Marc Johnson pointed out that Hydro-Québec, Quebec's public liquor and auto insurance corporations, water and health are all targets. The government will try to tell us, no, we won't touch these services. But if that's true, they should state publicly these services will be kept out of the agreement altogether. It must be false, because we know the European Union wouldn't sign anything without getting access to public markets, water and electricity, which is ultimately what it wants. Because this agreement reaches far beyond trade. If it were just a trade agreement, as someone said earlier, it wouldn't be plagued with all these problems. This agreement has little to do with trade and everything to do with democracy. That is what you have to understand. And it is why it's important that we fight from both sides of the Atlantic. Because we share common interests, Canadians and Europeans. And I'm thrilled to see the campaign is gaining momentum and having an impact.
Sa dynamique et ses effets.
Students have long recognized that these trade agreements seek to undermine and destroy our access to quality education, opening the doors to our universities and colleges to more and more privately funded research, and in some cases, private corporations operating entire facilities and departments. And in this case, I'm thinking Navitas, for one, a private college at the University of Manitoba that uses public resources and undermines existing staff and faculty for bare minimum programming to simply exploit international students. Or perhaps Monsanto's national headquarters at the University of Manitoba funding agricultural research. Or perhaps Cisco Systems at the University of Winnipeg, our human rights university, providing expertise in telecommunications. This is the same company that develops the software used to restrict the internet in China, and the list goes on.
This is fundamentally altering the role of the courts in this country. The courts are going to be directed by those players that have been given by government intellectual property rights. It's the citizens that grant that to them. It's a social contract, but they're taking it another step further to guarantee ultimate control and ultimate compensation and to scare the hell out of anybody that dares farm in a normal way by saving his own seeds and planting his own crops. Remember, this is not trade. This is about changing the role of government and your government and governance to be a vehicle for the corporations, the biggest corporations of the world, and nothing less.
And so what I think we need to do is take what we've learned tonight back to our homes, back to our workplaces, back to our communities. We need to talk to our friends, our families, and our co-workers, and we need to make some noise. We need to kick in the door, turn on the light, and make things really messy, because what we've learned is that there's nothing more powerful than the power of public outrage. We saw it in Egypt recently. We've seen it in Wisconsin. And we know it from our own history. When the people want to get something done, the people have to get noisy, and this is an issue we've got to make some noise on.
This $300 million P3 was sprung on us with no warning. This could mean, if it's approved, the control of our water for 30 years. By a foreign consortium for a profit. That means that the children that I handed these balloons to will have to live with this for 30 years. For my grandson, who's 8, he will be 38 years old before we're free of this contract.
The number of people who have extended health benefits in Canada has been declining, not increasing. And the generosity of the employer is shrinking at the same time. So, and a lot of this is due to the escalating cost of drugs. So employers are paying higher premiums because the drugs are hitting their extended health benefit plans. And so employers are trying to shift the cost to consumers. Paul said that $1.3 billion of the $2.8 billion increase is falling onto the shoulders of the provinces, but $1.5 billion is falling onto the shoulders of private payers, and the majority of that, roughly $800 million, is going to come out of our pockets directly. This has nothing to do with extended health benefits. We will pay out of pocket by about $800 million if the CETA agreement goes through.
Water is just not for sale. It's not something that can be on the table anywhere, and it's just really quite shocking to imagine that any negotiating government, it is absolutely shocking to think that any negotiating government acting on behalf of its citizens should suggest at any level that that should be a point of discussion. It's really almost beyond comprehension that someone should imagine that water should be a commodity that could be sold or dealt in a way where private hands could have the leading decision-making capacity on who gets it and how much you pay for it and where it's available and all that sort of thing. Victoria is already well positioned to be in the forefront of this part of the discussion because our council has unanimously endorsed the idea that the human right to water is an essential concept and that it cannot be on any trade table at any time.